Powered by Fantasyverse. Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
What is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are tuned in for an all-new edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative editor-in-chief. To my left, your right, one of our fine, astute comic reviewers, but you also know him as the face behind Wrestling Night Live every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Nerd Initiative YouTube. Say hello to Rich.
What's up, everybody? It's time to get super, because it is super week. That's right.
It is indeed. And last but certainly not least, it's in his contract. He has to do his own intro.
Come at 11 hours straight from the ODPH studios. My name's Off the Cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur, Ken Rich Clark. Always a pleasure.
Indeed, because this week, as Rich alluded to, it is time to celebrate Superman. Shout out to Derek in the chat. It's TaP time indeed. And this one, we're definitely keeping that Superman theme alive. You saw him play for keeps. We were talking Superman. There is a ton of video articles up on the YouTube channel, on the website, celebrating the Man of Steel, because this week he is returning back to the big screen with James Gunn leading the way, kicking off a brand new era for the DC Studios universe. So for tonight's edition of TaP, we elected to go into the vaults and go pick out a classic story that is influencing the movie. One of the major influences of the new film coming out. Like we say, reviews are dropping, so be careful on social media where you are checking them. We're not talking about the movie itself because we haven't seen it yet. But if you have seen it, keep it to yourself and let everyone give a chance to watch it. Because one of the stories that has been most impactful has been Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb and the late Tim Sale. So this is one from 1998 that definitely still rings true to this day. It's a classic Superman story, unlike anything else. So if you're new to Turn a Page, definitely throw in the chat, super chat, your favorite Superman stories. We definitely want to see them on here. And I'll pose this question to my illustrious panel, because we are going to go into spoiler-free talk about this book, and then we're going to do a deep dive into it. So if you haven't seen it yet, trust me, we're going to be talking all things Four Seasons. But that said, Rich, give me your spoiler-free statement on Superman for All Seasons.
Wait a minute. I thought we were talking about Roman Reigns. You said Superman.
Well, he is Superman at WWE, but you're too used to being on Thursday nights, my friend. This is Tuesday night.
The Boy Scout in the red, yellow, and blue. Okay. Anyways, and all seriousness, Superman All Seasons. Honestly, I never read this book before. This was the first time I read this book. I like the telling of the tale of Superman without like going too far into like we know the backstory. Mm-hmm. So he skipped over kind of like the known parts, but it was kind of nice seeing him as like a young teen lad all the way through working through his first parts of being a superhero. And then of course, I think the biggest part of all of this, not that we've seen the movie or anything, and this is spoiler free, was obviously the Lex Luthor villainy of the book. So I think that if anything was James Gunn was going to take from this, I think that that's pretty much the biggest thing, I would say, just from what I've seen so far. So I did enjoy the story. It was nice. It's concise, and it definitely gets the story and job done.
Absolutely. Tom, how about you?
This is the best Superman story I've seen from the outside in, but the feelings come from the inside out.
It's very much so. I mean, this is one that really strives at the emotions. And we know about what Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale did with the Batman Long Halloween. We knew that when they get a hold of a character, they can definitely give you a new perspective on him. And this is one that it really drives that point home and really gives you the core essence of what makes The Last Son of Krypton so important, not just to the people of Smallville and Metropolis, but to the world in general as a true symbol of hope. And this series definitely covers all the bases on it. It is a phenomenal read from top to bottom and still holds up from the 90s to now.
Very much so.
So that being said, let us go right into the story. So chat, super chat, definitely want to see those Superman stories pop in here. And we kick off with a look at a time where Superman obviously is coming into play. and you see the little symbol on the screen. But then we shift right to Smallville, Kansas, where one Clark Kent is on the Kent farm yelling for Pa. And this is a moment that this story actually kicked off something I thought was rather ingenious, because this version of issue 1 was told through the voice of Jonathan Kent.
Now, real quick, I'm just want to pose this out here, and I want you guys to think about this throughout the show, and I want everybody in the chat and super chat to do this too. Since this 4 books takes place from different people's perspective, which spoiler, sorry folks, it's been long enough. We want to know by the end, what actor did you hear who's portrayed Superman or the characters over the years? Who did you hear? Like, we always hear Kevin Conroy as Batman, so on and so forth.
Great question. So super chat, definitely throw your picks in. Jonathan Kent here. I mean, I'll be honest, I heard Kevin Costner.
You stole my thunder. That was where I was going.
Yeah, that's where I really heard him, because the dialogue that's used in these pages, you really get a core sense of the Snyder verse on it. I will say, like, a little more gruff Jonathan Kent that we're used to seeing, but one that's very honest, because he understands, obviously, with his superpowered adopted son, he's not like anybody else, and he's getting to the point where he has to kind of break away on his own. And that's a tough deal for any parent to deal with when the child leaves the nest. But in this situation, when you have one of the most powerful figures in all the DCU, it's a little more amplified, to say the least.
But this is kind of like the start of what this whole first little run, of course, of the fall, of the summer is we have, or spring. Sorry, I'm on the wrong book already. But with the spring is that you had to see Clark kind of also dealing with the fact of learning how powerful he truly is. So, like, even when he's helping his dad out in the fields, it's like, hey, be careful when you do that. You need something with leverage, and he's just like, I don't know. I think we're good.
Yeah.
And then, as we go on, you get to see more and more of him being kind of surprised in a little ways of how strong he's becoming.
I think that comes to the whole idea, the direct correlation, how spring is usually that coming of age, especially puberty and everything. So to see Clark have his powers develop in such a way, especially right again in the first book as spring, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I say, I mean, they really hit it around on the point too. And then we obviously get a quick shot of Smallville and, a happier time in Clark's life. And like I say, the artwork by Tim Sale in this is just amazing. The detail, and it really takes you back to those early years of Clark Kent.
It's Rockwell, man.
Yeah. Like, honestly, like, that's the kind of vibe I got from this as well, too. And just to see how Clark is dealing with this too, with Lana Lang, and really coming into his own about like what the future holds, because during this entire point, it is a little bit mix of like what to do with Clark in his future. Like, you see a lot of internal conflict and struggle with the Kents, because obviously knowing what is coming and how he deals with it. And especially too, they're trying to be very delicate saying it around him, because we have to remember he's still growing up in front of their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So as we see them heading into town, obviously it's a little more, small town America. Everybody's at the diner, everybody's talking shop. And of course he runs into his old friend Pete, who is not exactly understanding like why they are so happy here, and kind of has grander aspirations. Would you say, Tom?
Absolutely. The ideas of grandeur coming from Smallville, Lamesville, he wants that big, next step. He rubs that lucky elephant every single time because he knows he's in a one stoplight town.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I mean, if I may, it was very strange for me when I moved from Philadelphia all the way up here. And I'm not saying that where we live is a one stoplight town. They at least have three. But I was still lived about an hour away from here, and it was a very different vibe. So I can understand in the reverse order.
Yeah. Rich, how about you?
I think it's interesting to see the interactions, because it's like kids being kids. When you grow up in a small town, you always think that you want bigger aspirations. By the way, Pete gave me Stifler vibes.
Yeah.
So if you listen to him in that voice, great.
Eddie Haskell.
No, you could do that too. But I think that there's a certain amount of like youth and also innocence in this. And of course, when he goes to get his hair cut, then he can see through walls and he's breaking scissors. And it's just like Superman is now like Clark doesn't know how to handle not being. I mean, he's always not been normal,
right,
if you will, but now he's really abnormal, and it's hard to hide.
Yeah, it's one thing that obviously he's just getting used to. And hearing Pete Ross and Lana Lang talk about the future, that is starting to wear on him, especially when they go to the barbershop scene where, he's sitting there trying to be calm about everything, but it's not exactly working out in his favor. That's something that happens. And there is that moment too where the barber's trying to cut his hair and actually breaks his own scissors, which, I mean, obviously, Kryptonian hair is a little stronger than anybody realizes.
Man of Steel.
I was going to say that gives me like one of those Brody questions of like, how does Superman cut his hair?
He doesn't.
Like we know how he shaves. We saw that in the animated series.
Yeah.
But how does he cut his hair? Does Kryptonian physiology just stop at a certain length?
I think to a degree. I mean, at some point, maybe just holds it up with a mirror and it hits the laser, the heat vision off it.
Yep. Could work.
I just like the fact that in this whole sequence where he's doing the uncomfortable things, we get to see like all of these Superman, like the classic Superman powers go back to back to back. You got seeing through the wall. You've got Man of Steel. Haha, the hair gets cut, breaks the scissors. And then, of course, faster than, stronger and faster than a locomotive here as he darts in front of one. So it's like they kind of like did the whole, hey, let's get the whole gambit of, the whole Superman aura and just do it like in a classy boom, boom, boom way.
Yeah. Because that's essentially what they need to do. Because at this time period, you're really tying in the stuff like pre-John Byrne, Man of Steel reset. You're really getting back to the core essence of Superman. And especially putting those all on display, that's a huge deal.
The quiet boy.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, the Boy Scout, you're trying to really capture that moment too. And especially where he admits to his dad that he's scared. And especially seeing somebody that obviously later on in life is not afraid of anything. He's the greatest, defender of Earth that we have in the DCU. But to see him have that human side to him, I think is really touching.
I would make an argument. I think that's the one thing that makes Superman actually human. I think Superman has a healthy amount of fear in every great Superman run. Not every run, but every great one. If you think about it, he has a healthy amount of fear. And I think that's really what endears him to be, human. I mean, the last book we ran over when me and you did this, Tom, with Men of Tomorrow.
Correct.
He has a healthy amount of fear in that book, especially of Ulysses and also of where his place was, especially after he got displaced after being dead. Because that's where that book. And in this book, it kind of shows that that's his humanity arc. And I think that's what draws him. I'm not saying he doesn't conquer that fear all the time, because obviously he does. But I think that is really what makes him more human, even though technically he's not.
Well, I think in every single great Superman run, like you touched upon, the creators have to give him something to be afraid about. Because if Superman's not afraid, or there isn't that sense of danger, what are we doing here? And that's something that is really tricky to do, especially in the more classic years of Superman, because he would all come up with crazy powers on his own, almost, it seemed like, and just kind of run with it. That's why I say the John Byrne reset that happened in '87, that is one that I think really is a key turning point, because everything kind of got, trimmed down, so to speak, to the bare basics, but still impactful. But still, every threat that came to him was still challenging.
The only great run where he's not afraid, where fear isn't his big thing, what drives him, is one of his shout outs to Ken is Injustice. Yeah. Because technically he loses all fear and then he becomes one hell of a villain.
He's an amazing villain. Oh, yeah. Chef's kiss. That whole run, just amazing. Video game line. All right, I don't want to get too sidetracked.
Yes.
But still. But then we see where Superman has to come up with his own little more grounded challenge here, shall we say.
Did you take that out of my book?
Yes, I did. Haha. So we do see a tornado is coming towards Smallville, and the reaction here, even just the little mannerisms that are going on with Tim Sale's artwork here, you really see that fear happen with him. And especially this is a true challenge, knowing that the people he loves and cares about could be hurt. And to kind of have that human aspect too, especially as he's screaming for his dad to make sure he's okay. He's also flying in midair and then sees somebody is in trouble at a gas station. And seeing that moment too, he immediately kicks into high gear and swoops in to save the day before there's an explosion, and winds up just being the human shield. And then you see the result happen. And just the double page splash here really kind of puts an assessment of what's going on, but really kind of gives him that moment that he's done something good with those powers. Would you say?
Yes. I mean, the fact that I love the idea that, did Clark know he could fly at that point, or did he just know that he was indestructible, or that he could take the hit if he fell? It's like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to do it anyway. That really shows the selflessness that is instilled in him. And you'll see that later in the book. And again, one of the core values of Superman.
I mean, Rich, what do you think about that?
I would argue that I don't even know if he knew he was technically indestructible at this point in juncture. I think that it shows that he has the innate ability to do the right thing. When we talk about, the Boy Scout, this is him doing the right thing regardless. And that's where he conquers fear. That's where you talk about, like I said, all great arcs are have him have fear. But what makes him Superman, what makes him greater than all of us, is not because he's an alien who has great amounts of power.
Mhm.
It's that when he's faced with fear, he always does the right thing.
Yeah.
He always just goes into action.
Yeah.
Let consequences be damned. So I'm not quite sure. I'm with you. I don't know what he knows, because coming into this arc, you're kind of like led to believe, and they've done a good job of showing it, that he keeps getting surprised by what he can do. And it's like, oh, maybe he didn't know he could fly. Maybe he didn't know he was indestructible.
Mhm.
Maybe he just thought that, but he saw somebody in need and just went, okay, I have to do something.
Yeah.
And that's how he saves the day. And then, of course, we come and, he makes sure the Pa's okay. And he's got to make sure the family's okay. And then he really embraces those powers.
Oh, yeah, completely.
I mean, it's not a hold my beer moment. It's a hold my glass of milk moment.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because he has that tender moment where he's just like, he gets the family together for the hug, and then picks up Lana to take her for a flight.
Hey, listen, you got to go for a fly. First of all, he got the tractor off the roof of the barn, showing his parents that he can fly.
Cleanup's always important after a disaster.
Yes. And then, like I say, then meeting with the pastor, and then kind of coming to terms that he's leaving, and having this moment here in the sky with Lana Lang, and really establishing like his time is over, and just kind of having that quiet moment. And he admits, like, I can fly. Like, it really kind of sinks into him, because at this moment, like I say, he's still learning his powers. And I like how Loeb kind of does the slow burn here, that we don't know exactly what he's learning, but he's learning it now, literally on the fly, pun intended. Yeah. And then to see where he's taking it now, because he knows that obviously with great power comes great responsibility.
Stealing somebody else's time.
Yeah. But he knows with that time that he has to leave for Metropolis, but has that parting moment with his dad. And this scene right here, this is just a punch in the gut. Would you say, Tom?
You get it.
Yeah. Super chat. What's your thoughts on this scene? That when they have the final goodbye in the sunset with Jonathan Kent. I mean, Rich, this is just one of those impactful moments.
I mean, it's impactful, but he's wearing what can only be described as a zoot suit. So I'm bringing you back to Earth.
Why?
Because you wanted to be brought back to Earth. Trust me.
Yeah. Because
we can't let it get too emotional. You have to save that. There's 3 more books in this.
There's run. 3 more, but like I say, the emotional hits they do right now before we head to Metropolis, and he knows where his future lies. Like I say, the emotional hit right here is enough to really drive home that point. And then, especially when he gets to Metropolis, well, we run into a few familiar faces.
Oh, yeah.
So we go right to the Daily Planet, Perry White, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and Clark Kent, obviously being a fish out of water here and being very uncomfortable in the situation. And then we're introduced to a character that we all know, and this is one that when I see this, I'm seeing Gene Hackman.
Yes.
Immediately.
Very much so.
And I marked out about this, and that is Lex Luthor with hair and just being that slimy, despicable rogue that we all know and love. And then especially, too, with Superman winds up making a friend, saving a boy, throwing catch on a rooftop. That's the moment where like, this is the game, especially seeing Lex's eyes in that moment. I think that is the most telling point as we transition seasons and go into the next chapter. Like you can't beat that. So then as we transition into the next season, and obviously Superman is feeling, dare I say, a little more comfortable in his role, would you say, Tom?
Yeah, he's definitely rocking the underoos and is comfortable in Metropolis.
Yeah. Rich?
Yeah, it is now the classic Superman that we all know and love.
Yeah, like I say, he's right now at home, getting used to the lay of the land and really kind of making a stake in Metropolis, which I mean, obviously we see the time jump happening a bit between the seasons. So it's kind of, we have to keep that in mind, because like all of a sudden he's developing a little more confidence in his role. And as we see things, well, they do not exactly go as he plans, but he is called immediately into action because he sees that obviously there's a rocket in space. And then this whole sequence of events flying in, you see the big ass going, you see this shot of him catching the rocket, and just like they say, the little stuff Tim Sale does in this book, the reflection of himself in the rocket nose. This is brilliant. And I am absolutely just, like I say, the little stuff I find, the more I read this story, just absolutely knocks me out. What do you think about the scene as you're seeing it, Rich?
You got the curly Q. You forgot the curly Q.
Well, there is that. Yeah, we'll go back
Come
to
on,
it.
let's be honest. You have to, like, that's classic vintage Superman right there. But no, yes, it gives you all the feels. It's like the classic scene of Superman. Like, this is in the book. At this point, actually, you have, like, we're going through it, but that's especially the scene where he's holding the actual rocket. That is stuff that you picture the Man of Steel doing.
Like
that is classic Superman stuff. Him flying up to it with the two hands forward, has the look on his face of determination, the whole outfit, everything. Like, they're giving you classic Superman. And that is what it is there for. It is there to give you all the feels of, oh, we gave you the beginning part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
He is now Superman.
Yeah.
Like, this is just to signal the readers. We went from Clark Kent to now we got Superman. And we give us all the feels, because all these pages that come up are just phenomenal, just Superman art, just like classic, vintage, however you want to look at art.
And it doesn't matter which artist or which, lens you look at this through, whether it's in TV or in movies. We've all seen these types of images, and the fact that it's just extremely it's so smart just to still evoke that same feeling and emotion, just with a different, medium. There's that one scene where he's looking over Earth, and I love the fact of, it is a double page spread and how large he is compared to the Earth. It really makes you understand how powerful Superman can be and how small we could be in compared to him.
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy right there, Tom. And you do see it right here too. Definitely have to go back to some comments in the chat. Shout out to Lincoln joining us. Bald Lex is the best. I mean, listen, I can't argue that, but the Gene Hackman-esque homage, I have to mark out for.
Look at those eyebrows.
And I know Derek was definitely chiming in. Incredible spread with the sunset, really pushing the emotion in the moment. I fully agree. Like, that is something you're going to find a lot in this series too. And especially we talk about the emotion. We see about Superman looking down at the Earth after he's thrown the rocket into space. Lex Luthor's emotion right here.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about setting a pace. You see the anger seething in him that his plans have gone awry. And then obviously, when we get into what Superman is going, because he obviously says, well, somebody sent that rocket into space. We find him going underwater to go find out who's responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And now Lex's plan is all coming apart. We see that there's a submarine underwater. And obviously, if somebody's there, Superman wants to find out who's doing it. And we do see that on that crew, there is a stowaway of sorts. So as Lex and company gets to the pier, we see that Superman is carrying that sub above ground, and we have the first real interaction between Superman and Lex. And when you're seeing this unfold, Tom, like, what's your reaction?
Look, I love Lex as a villain. I love the fact that he has such an ego. I don't know who's more of a villain, Lex or Lex's ego.
It's a great debate.
It really is. And even sometimes you got to put his intelligence in there as a completely separate third character. He's always fighting with himself to try to be the better self. And now that there's somebody that's more self than him, he's pissed.
Yeah, Rich?
I mean, it's a great moment to have whenever you have the iconic villain. Because, like, you can have a rogues gallery. We all have it. But everybody has to have their iconic foil. Superman's just happens to be Lex Luthor. And that's why it makes it so impactful. Just like the Joker happens to be Batman's.
Mm-hmm.
And we could go on and argue about Spider-Man's, because let's be honest, there's
the Flash too.
The Flash,
we
got a lot. But and to tie it into next week, spoilers ahead, Dr. Doom is Fantastic Fours.
Yeah.
So you have like all these iconic things. So in this story, we get to see that first meeting, if you will, like a real like verbalization between the iconic hero and the iconic villain, and it kind of sets the stage.
It definitely does.
Verbalization is a great way to put this, because we kind of glanced over it that this one is being narrated by Lois, and it's really interesting to see the tone and pace, and especially the inflection that we're coming from her mindset as a reporter and where she's at, as opposed to Jonathan in the previous episode issue.
So that being said, chat, we got a little homework assignment for you here. Obviously, who's the Lois Lane you hear talking in this series? Ooh. And who is your favorite Superman villain? We can definitely, obviously, we're going to spend a lot of time talking Lex, but I want to see Brainiac in that mix, Toyman. Doomsday. Who is your favorite? Let's see it light up in the chat there.
If it was Batman, it would be Condiment King.
Oh, I mean, you can't.
I would relish that.
Yeah.
There, waited up.
There he is. It's the layup is right there. But as we get into it, Superman obviously tears into the submarine.
It's real easy.
And he is trying to find, obviously, who is responsible. And then there's that quick moment, too, because somebody winds up turning on Lex, a part of this crew. And then we see him pull a gun on Lois. And then Lex is sitting there trying to say how he's such a master negotiator. When you're hearing this, I admit I laughed out loud.
Dude, he got cucked.
Whoa, hey,
whoa, Tom.
That's an old English word. You can use that.
But in this situation, yeah, I mean, we'll go you first, Rich. I mean, your reaction to the scene.
Not what Tom said.
Yes.
Not what Tom said. But no, I think this is the perfect, what we were talking about, where you have the dichotomy between Lex Luthor and Superman, and the difference between the guy who wants to be Superman, talks a good game, but he can't actually act on it. Whereas Superman is the opposite. He doesn't need to talk about the game because he can do it. And especially when you see, as Lex is like, yeah, I'm going to negotiate him to get the gun away. And just Superman's like, here's the gun.
Yeah.
like it's the really the epitome of really what their relationship, or sorry, their feud rivalry is about. Mm-hmm. Lex wants to be Superman.
Yeah, in the really, worst possible way.
But he can't be Superman. He's Paul Heyman.
Yep.
To Superman's Roman Reigns.
Oh, great wrestling analogy.
Because Superman, like Roman Reigns, our tribal chief, goes out there and he takes it on and he takes it out. However, the wise man speaks a good game, but can't really, take care of business. And that's what you got going on here. Is Superman's obviously taking care of business, while Lex Luthor's like pontificating about how I'm going to talk him off the ledge.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
And then especially after Lois winds up taking out the guard himself after the gun is removed, the reaction Superman has here in this panel, priceless, because he's just kind of sitting there like, all right, are we ready, Miss Lane? Because he knows obviously she snuck onto the boat, and that obviously knew that it was going to put something in danger. But that's something Lois has done throughout the dawn of time. Like, she's arguably the greatest reporter in all the DCU.
She's the anti-damsel in distress. She puts herself in the situation on purpose.
Yeah. Because she can handle herself and is right up there with all the superheroes too. That, when you see this kind of situation play out, it does cause a little more friction between Lex and Superman, because obviously Lex has been embarrassed and it's going to hit the paper. He winds up getting rid of Lois to safety, I should say, and then goes back to his mundane life.
I also want to point out the art drawing Lois as kind of a badass.
Yeah.
Like, Lois doesn't look like, the damsel in distress. They make sure to make her like sassy, but also you can tell she's strong, especially taking out the guy. And you're just kind of like, oh wow, they're really making you realize that she don't need no man. Mm-hmm. She's got this. She's got it under control. Although sometimes she gets herself in trouble.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing about her, but she is just a force of nature in her own right. And to answer Lincoln's question, does Lex have a fascination or obsession with Superman? 1,000%.
And then some.
Yeah, it's just the ultimate jealousy in him, because Lex likes to think that he's above everybody, and Superman is somebody that he knows he can never be above. And that will always drive him nuts.
That's his own kryptonite.
Yeah, literally. And especially there's a great series, Lex Luthor, Man of Steel, that's also influencing the portrayal that Nicholas Hoult's doing in the Superman film. Brian Azzarello wrote it. Amazing book. So definitely one to check out. That really kind of brings that into full focus, in my opinion, for that. But getting back to this story, though, we do see obviously that, Clark is adjusting to his quiet life in Metropolis. It's not exactly the same as home, but he does make a breakaway to go back home. And this scene right here, just another emotional thing.
Prior to him going back home, I love the smart direction in the art and making it as monotone as possible with all the blues, the illusion that he's alone, that he's lonely, that everything is monotone to him, because that's all he can be. He can't be bigger. He can't have a rich and full life at this point.
Yeah.
And then it gets bright when he goes home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I say, the coloring scheme they did is just next level about this. And that it just really, goes, drives that point home too. And piggyback, Derek's jumping back in the chat. Lex also believes he's responsible for the greatness of Metropolis, and Superman has taken all the glory. Yeah, that is something. I mean, it all results back to the ego. Like, that's his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. And especially when you see that portrayed in the comics, and really that's the driving force behind anything, that's when you have some true classic stories, much like this book too. So, and obviously Superman is back home, and it's like I say, it's kind of a routine moment where he's kind of catching back up. He knows Lana has left town. Pete Ross is still being Pete Ross, very jealous of Clark in this stage. And Clark is even kind of questioning his role in life at this moment too. But he is called away because there is a fire that's happening at a chemical plant in Metropolis. And obviously this whole spread here, this 2-page splash, definitely drives that point home. So this is a threat that is Superman-esque. And to see him fly away from Smallville to get back home, truly a big moment. But we do see that there's a certain armored robotic crew that's on the scene trying to handle this. Yeah, it's Lex bots. So when we're seeing this, I mean, Tom, what's your reactions?
It's Lex. But I appreciate the fact that they did use these automatons rather than, hey, you know what, this is Superman year one and we're automatically going to throw Lex in his power suit. So that, I will say, was a very smart idea because it shows you the businessman and callous side and cowardice of Lex because he's not there on scene.
Rich?
Yeah, I agree with what Tom just said, but it is also interesting that they did the full-on Lex bots instead of like the little drone pieces.
Yes.
Because like you would think that they would, so at one end skipping and not skipping to just being Lex and his super armor. I think that's good, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, why didn't you start out with the smaller ones and work their way? So like you could question it, but I still think it's
overcompensating.
But yes, exactly. But if you did do the drones, you don't get this great scene where one of them is trying to hold Superman back.
Yeah,
which is kind of laughable for us, the reader, to be like, really, this bot is holding Superman back?
Yeah, and I love the reaction here too because you see the bot is trying to hold him back, and Superman just throws him aside like nothing, because then he sees that somebody is in trouble inside, so he makes the save and obviously putting out the fire and saving the person inside, but then goes back and handles the fire as only he can. And like I say, this full page splash that's in the center of the screen, that is just, I mean, that's vintage Superman. Like I say, it's
artwork.
Yeah, it's fantastic artwork. So then obviously Superman makes the save. But then we get a shot of Lex paying a visit to this victim of the fire, but she is doing okay. But as he pulls up, he finds out that there's a little more of an infatuation with Superman going on than he realized.
Ooh, she loved her some Superman.
Yeah.
He's my angel.
Yeah. So
I thought the art was a little Harley Quinn-esque.
Yes.
And it works out because
Thank
she's
you.
kind of like the Harley Quinn of Superman. So I think that if that wasn't the inspiration, then I don't know how they nailed it so good, but I'm assuming that was the inspiration.
Well, at that point, it was what, 90?
It's 98.
98. So Harley's been out, what?
Yes.
Just a couple of years.
Just a couple of years.
So
Yeah,
she's still fresh.
But still, once again, though, that is kind of like the vibes that you get from her. She's as obsessed with Superman as Harley is with the Joker. And it's kind of creepy. Like when you see the shot, like I know it was just on the screen a minute ago, but when you see the shot where Lex is walking in the room and there's a shrine to Superman.
Yeah.
Like that's creepy.
It's a murder wall.
It pretty much was.
It's creepy, but it's enough to set him off too. So like he was going there for one idea, but then he sees that and that's just enough to make his blood boil, because obviously he doesn't want anybody to love Superman. He wants everybody to love him. So it is kind of an odd situation as it takes place. But then we transition to another season. And this is where we head into a very, very interesting chapter. I would say this is probably my favorite chapter of the book, the fall. Because when we get here, this is where Metropolis is really, really picked up and really now taken accustomed to Superman and what he's doing, that he is truly a hero. And this one is voiced in the manner of Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
So super chat, who did you hear as Lex when you were seeing this?
Gene Hackman, because he looks like him.
Yeah.
Like there is no way you can tell me that it was not the inspiration for this art.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, you're definitely not hearing Clancy Brown. You're not hearing, that other actor that we don't talk about anymore. It's Hackman.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is Gene Hackman.
It's Gene Hackman-esque. But as we see, this is where, Lex is obviously getting fingerprinted, and he's making a story about how it's a love story between him and Metropolis. And just how he spins this. Like I said, I love how Jeff Loeb spins this into that little peek inside Lex's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we see, obviously, with Superman flying around and Lex is getting let out of court and onto his helicopter. Well, there's a little problem in the sky, would you say, Tom?
Yeah, there's a Superman in the sky and there's a helicopter. And yeah, I was more intrigued at the whole fact. I'll be honest. This spread was so nice. I was looking more at the panels than anything else.
Yeah.
Like it's got all the buttons and everything.
The attention to detail here is insane.
And the fact that you know, this is one of the first real big wide shots we get to see of Metropolis that still has that very reminiscent feel of the Art Deco design, but you can still tell that it has some classic architecture as well. But I always loved that. And of course, there's LexCorp right in the middle, overcompensating.
Oh, he's overcompensating.
Rich, what about you?
Oh, it's a beautiful scene. I mean, you know, it's a bird, it's a plane. It's the Man of Steel, and he's there to ruin Lex Luthor's day.
Yeah,
like that's just kind of like just classics Superman stuff. Beautiful panel though. Superman looks amazing once again. When you're talking about iconic looks, he's got the iconic look. He's ready to go. He's ready to fight. He's ready to kick some butt. And Lex, on the other hand, he's ready to hit the showers.
Yeah, Lex is in there. He's just having a real tough time comprehending it. And just really putting into place, and he's trying to remain calm, even though like he's getting in a shave and somebody cuts him. He's like, "That's okay, I forgive you." Like you can kind of see the depression setting in about this when he's trying to deal with it.
I also think that this scene is a little deeper because even though he does the whole "I forgive you," it proves that he is but a man.
Thank you.
He can be cut.
Thank you.
He can bleed. And I mean, I know we're going to make the jokes because obviously, you know, the Snyderverse was a thing, and you know the whole the bleed thing, you know, like, but in this case, it actually is just poetic. They're like, once again, he aspires to be Superman. We don't know if Superman bleeds because we haven't seen Superman bleed.
Yeah.
But we know a man like Lex Luthor can bleed.
Yeah. It's a wild scenario to see play out, but yeah, that really brings everything back in full circle. Chat, super chat, I'm throwing it out there. Who's your favorite Lex Luthor? Pop it in the chat. But then as we get back to the story, this is where things really start picking up.
Clancy Brown.
Because we see that after Lex is there late night, he gets a visit from Superman. And this is kind of the first standoff they've had since the encounter on the pier. And this is one that definitely kind of sets the pace for a lot of things, especially in Lex's mind.
Tell me that is not Chris Reeve Superman right there.
It is.
Oh, 1,000%. Oh, that's the influence right there.
So freaking good.
Like this is the classic Christopher Reeve movie influence. And we see obviously their discussion, and Lex is just really breaking it down to him. And not mincing words either.
No.
He is really driving home that point about he does not like Superman, doesn't trust him, and wants him to leave. And it's obviously not going over well.
He is an alien. And he does not deserve to be amongst humanity.
Yeah.
Like this is where you really get into kind of Lex Luthor being like, not just as he's jealous of Superman, but his reasoning for now being jealous of Superman is because you don't belong.
Yeah.
And I belong, but you don't belong. So it's kind of like you start to see the wheels start to turn as far as like what we know is once again vintage Luthor and Superman, but telling it in this story, it kind of gives you like, oh, there's the backstory. There it is. Like we understand that the real reason that Lex Luthor doesn't like Superman is he's jealous and he can't be Superman. But he's not going to ever say that. He's just going to tell him that I'm better than you because I belong and you don't belong. And that's kind of like the dynamic.
It's the PR spin he does.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's what he does to make himself to go to sleep at night.
He lies so well, he even convinces himself.
Yeah. And literally that is how it plays out there. But all the while, Superman had right to go check on him because, well, there's something going on behind the scenes.
Ooh.
And this is probably one of the more horror-esque moments.
And what movie comes to your mind?
Clockwork Orange.
Thank you.
Yep. We have the victim there, who is also a chemist, is now in the possession of Lex Luthor and more or less getting brainwashed. And this scene, like, listen, this is very more intense than I thought it was going to be, especially for a Superman story. Like you touched upon, this is Clockwork Orange 101. Seeing this go down, I think if anybody was questioning Lex being a good guy, or so to speak, that went right out the window.
Please.
I was going to say, Lex is taking a book out of Professor Pig's House of Horrors. Yeah. Let's be honest. Like, yes, it is very reminiscent of Clockwork Orange, but oh boy, it's creepy.
It is. But at the same time, even in the way that this whole story has been done and the fact that we are in a Lex book, we needed a over the top Lex thing to ground us, to make us realize Lex is still Lex, regardless of everything else that's going on in these 4 books.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to the degree that he's willing to go.
Yeah. So that obviously has Jenny Vaughn, the victim there, and is brainwashing her. You know, it's not up to any good. And then we get the shot of the Daily Planet where, things are kind of relatively as normal as they get. And obviously Lois Lane is snooping around Clark's desk.
I do have to say, the one thing, mind you, I know we have some, but I would say at the end, the only attraction that I thought about this series, and I know it happens a lot, but like a lot of times you shrink back on Clark to make it like not as noticeable that he's Superman. And this scene really, really stands out because like he's standing above Lois,
he's towering,
and he's just hulked over her. And I'm just like, there's no way you don't know he's Superman. Because if you think about it, always usually in most runs, not just in the comics, but even when we see live action, you make Clark a little softer. He shrugs his shoulders down. He kind of makes himself look smaller. And in this scene, the whole scene, whether it's her pointing into his chest or whether he's just standing behind her, he hulks over. And I was just like, that kind of took me out for a second, just because I'm like, how do you not know he's Superman at this point in juncture? Like, I get the glasses are on, but like that was the only thing that kind of took me out for a second. Not that it ruined it, because I still think this is amazing scenes that go on here. It's just weird that their choice was to just show how big Clark is, not Superman, Clark.
Yeah, it was a little different, I thought, but it's one of those moments where I think they were more emphasizing about what was happening in the moment, and they just, like I say, minor faux pas, if you will, but it doesn't take away from the impact of what's happening, because when Lois gets sick and all of a sudden falls.
Although before that, I just wanted to throw in here scenes from the trailers when Lois is going hard at Superman in the trailer for the new movie. You get to see a bit of this in this story.
Yes.
She's jabbing him in the chest and she's giving him hell. She's not letting him off easy. And that was the first thing, because obviously the reason we're doing this is because the movie's coming out, folks. And this is when you say that this is I think there's a deeper connection, like we'll talk about later. But in this story, that Lois is the Lois I think we're kind of getting in the movie.
Yes.
The one that's firing back at Superman, the one that is a badass. And you get to see it in the scene before she gets sick. Sorry.
1,000,000%. No, you're exactly right. I think you're going to see that very strong, opinionated Lois show up here, and is not afraid to back down to Superman no matter what their relationship is. But in this situation, obviously, it is before they have a romantic connection, but it doesn't matter in this moment, because all of a sudden everybody at the Daily Planet is down and unconscious, and Clark has no idea what's going on. And in the background, you have Lex Luthor just saying, how is the American way? Like, he is just celebrating his win. This reminded me a lot of Breaking Bad. In one of the scenes when they do the timed strike in the last season. I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Sure.
This reminded a lot of that. And obviously with Lex just kind of,
looking evil.
Yeah.
Looking evil.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, you're watching this. What is unfolding in your mind?
This is perfect. More so in the art of how they portrayed Lex, with the backdrop of Metropolis and the shadowing, and they could have lightened him up, but the fact that they gave him such a heavy, deep black on the front, and you just got this, little bit of shading on his face, was perfect. And then what happened next was Clark just going, zoom. Why did he go out the front door?
That was kind of weird choice.
Well,
I'm just saying, like, he goes up and away, not down and out.
Well, you have to think about it. Even if the Daily Planet, everybody's unconscious there, he's either going to fly through a window, but if he breaks it or he does anything that does any structural damage, he's in trouble.
There's a fire escape.
Right, but he has to go somewhere. Well, you think he's going to take the time to open doors and fly out? He's trying to find the easiest way out without making any reference that he left the building. See, I didn't have a problem with that.
It was a good defense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say this, though. Reel it in, because I'm not opening up side conversations. That shot of Luthor really reminds you of certain world leaders. I just want to throw it out there. So 1998, they were ahead of their time. It's like The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Or Family Guy.
Simpsons or Family Guy. It's ahead of its time. It knew what the world was going to be like. A mere 27 years later.
But as we jump back to the story, though, we do see that, like I say, the trail of Superman flying like I said, I love how they kind of gave him the jet trail.
Yeah,
on here.
it was kind of cool. I like that touch the whole time when he did the flying thing. It makes you realize, it kind of gives you the clue of how fast Superman is going.
And the fact that they added in the yellow, because we've always seen him as either a blue blur or a yellow or a red blur, but the fact that we added in the yellow from the S and the belt and everything,
and not to mention also the yellow sun that gives him his power.
Mhm.
So I mean, that fits in. I like that touchdown.
Yeah. And especially because he sees a train that's coming down and the conductor is completely out.
Oh.
He has to go make the save. And this is where it gets a little crazy, because obviously if he doesn't stop this train, how many other people are going to die? And this is kind of where the responsibility comes in, as he has to make the save. And like I say, it's an iconic 2-page splash. I'll go back to it. It's well worth it. And even the little details, as you see the driver is kind of almost coming through the window there too, because he has to make the emergency stop. And then Clark's reaction obviously is just like in doubt, like what has happened, but he knows there's one person responsible for it. And that's when he makes the big confrontation amongst Luthor and is yelling at him through the window of his high rise.
Luthor, we need to talk.
Yeah. This scene right here, super chat. What is your thoughts about this? That Lex is like, I can't open the window. I could get sick. Humans get sick off this. Like, why are you doing okay? What is wrong with you? To paraphrase a bit. And to kind of have that back and forth going on.
Lex Luthor looks like Kingpin there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like not obviously he's got hair in this one, but if you look at it, he looks big. He's got his best shoulder padded suit on, because he's not this. We've seen it throughout this story. Even his shoulders are a little more round, so you can tell he's got some confidence. He's got some swag. He's dressed up. He's all suited up, and he's got his biggest shoulder pads on to make him look as big and intimidating as possibly could be. This is the opposite of kind of like the art that took me out a little bit with Clark being super big. This actually makes, and with Superman in the background of the one panel on the left, as you guys are looking at, it really puts in perspective that he's equal to Superman. Although in that middle one, they remind us that Superman is still the bigger man.
He's staring down on him.
Right.
Yeah. So then we see the reveal that, Lex has a result for this, and that's toxin.
Woo-hoo.
So we do see that he has a plan to change everything, but he's even saying, you do remember Jenny Vaughn. You're the one who saved her from the burning chemical building.
He's my angel.
Yeah. So Clark kind of goes along with this, even though there is a little bit of apprehension there. So as they're going through, they're spraying the antidotes because it's an airborne virus that's infecting everybody. And then we get the 2-page shot of them flying overhead. So everybody's getting better, but then suddenly everything goes awry because Toxin starts coughing. And then all of a sudden collapses at Luthor's penthouse. And then the shot right here of him staring out the window as Clark goes, her heart, it stopped. This moment right here, Rich, talk about it for a second.
Oh, man, that's evil. That is pure evil. That's awesome. So now you got Lex Luthor looking kind of like Kingpin mixed with the Joker.
Oh, I was going to say Ganon.
That too. But I'm just saying, like, if you look at this shot, I think that they were pulling from every evil character you can think of, because you want to make sure that everybody knows that Lex Luthor is not just a bad person, but he's evil. And as Clark is really worried about this woman who is now, failing and looks like she's going to die, Lex is just like, yeah, I got you again. And he knows that he's making good old Soups question himself, and he's in control at this point in juncture.
Yeah. Tom?
Again, the fact that, Luthor's holding the cards as much as Superman thinks he might be, because yes, he downplays his powers and abilities because he doesn't need to talk the talk. For once, Luthor absolutely has the upper hand, and he played the long game. And that to see, especially with that crack of lightning going right across his face, illuminating just that vile mind of his. Yes.
And then especially too, as we go to the final panel on the screen, it does look like he's already balding now. And with that moment, and he just says, I don't think you should be here anymore.
I also would like to point out, as you notice, this is the first time since they've been butting heads that he is willing to be in the same space as Superman. Like, he comes outside of the penthouse onto the balcony.
Yeah.
Like, before that, he did not want to be in the same physical space as Superman, but he knows that he's got him by the
Mhm.
balls, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to come out and I'm going to act like I'm now. It puts in that field that I'm tougher than you. I'm badder than you. I'm better than you.
Who's the captain now?
Exactly. You know, it's that classic pro wrestling for me and you, Ken, where the dastardly heel tags himself into the tag match after the hero's already down. And that is what Lex Luthor's doing here. Great piece of villainy, great piece of background. You make him look evil. Now you make him look kind of strong, but you also let the world know that he's still a coward at heart. I love every bit of it.
Yeah. I mean, it was perfect too, especially it did the one thing that we didn't think could happen in this moment. He broke Superman. Superman heads back to Smallville.
He must break him.
Yeah. But it's a
Ivan Drago, very nice.
It is a wild scene to play out. And then
if he dies, he dies.
We go to the final chapter.
It's almost like the bane of Superman's assistance.
It's true.
So as we go back to winter, obviously we see the young boy who's still playing on the roof, by the way. I just want to point this out.
He's not doing
Can you put a leash on him?
Where's his parents? Where is the parents?
Who is
this
his parents?
boy is on, it's not even like a roof. He's like on like a balcony area outside of a window where there's a bicycle for some reason too.
I know what part of town this is, obviously. Suicide Slums.
Oh.
No, Tom. Anyway.
It's a place in Metropolis.
Anyway. So we go right to the story, and obviously Lex is celebrating the win that Superman's gone. Lois Lane is getting used to him not being Clark not being there, and even is kind of questioning about why he's taking personal days in the middle of winter.
Mm-hmm.
And then during this moment, she's almost putting together that obviously Clark might be Superman, but then has to brush it off immediately.
No, he does. He just hulks over me. Is about the same size. Got that same chiseled chin.
Yeah,
handsome, boyish looks. But he doesn't have the curly Q, and he has glasses, and he doesn't have the curly Q.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the only difference.
Yeah,
they could be brothers, maybe.
Yeah,
well, not the same person.
Like I say, we kind of see this play out, and then obviously dealing with this, Clark is back home in Smallville, trying to recreate, find himself, so to speak. Speaking with Lana, who is actually back home.
Yeah.
So when he's here, this is a moment that obviously he's kind of having a little bit of self-discovery. Would you say?
I'm just gonna say, Clark's a player. This Clark has got some confidence.
I'm just saying, like, how did she know to come back? At what point? Like, we kind of allude to the fact that she, as the story goes, but
is this what we would call comic book plot armor?
I mean,
think about it. I mean, I like the scene. Don't get me wrong. We do need the scene.
Yes.
But if you think about it, this is like the definition of plot armor. Like, they had to have Lana come back so Superman can get his doubts out there, and she kind of gives him the kind love, but kind of is like, eh.
And also to note, Lana is the narrator for book 4.
That's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, but I think obviously when she came home, I mean, obviously I think the Kents called her. So that made some sense to bring her back.
There we go. But I'm just saying, there's a lot, but she's needed because as she comes out, she brings him back out and goes, kind of in a nice way. Because Lana's got the nice, sensibilities to her, but she kind of grabs, almost like to grab a hold of you. You know who you are? Get out there and save people. Yeah. What are you doing? But obviously she does in the way kinder way because she's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
She's the opposite of Lois in this story. Lois is a badass.
Very much.
Lana is like the
girl next door.
Yeah, she's the girl next door.
Completely. So as we get a shot there, kind of reminiscing, going back to Smallville. But like I said, we get a lot of similar themes here as we're trailing back. And obviously the town is still in there. Pete's still very bitter about everything.
He is definitely a bitter boy.
Yeah, he's like a low-key villain in this entire story.
I was going to say, was this his origin story?
I mean, it could be. But then obviously we see the Kents are there and trying to have a peaceful dinner going on. But in the sequence, though, there's a flood that is coming, and there's a lot of rain that's coming in. They're getting told to evacuate. They don't really listen to events. And then it kind of gets to a situation where they're ready to ride it out. And then Lana kind of drops the bomb and says, well, it's not like we don't have any superpower to get us out of here in case something happens. Yeah.
Wait, you know? You know?
Yeah. So it is kind of a moment.
I love how they're like, of course, her response is great. I know. Yeah. Like, it's a definitive too. It wasn't like, oh, wait a minute. Does she know? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So we do see that obviously she's kind of tipping off and Clark's in there kind of piecing everything together along with the rest of the family because they have to decide, okay, what's he winding up to do?
Clark, this reminds me, it's kind of like that. It reminds me of the biblical story of like Jesus's first miracle. Because Clark is kind of like, it's not my time yet. I'm not ready to do this right now with you guys. Like I'm good. That's a Metropolis thing. I got kind of put on my butt. Not ready to be Superman again anytime soon. And then basically kind of like through Lana, it's like, yeah, it's your time.
Yeah.
And I think it's told well because you can still see the self-doubt, and she's kind of now getting a little hard edge, like it's your time.
Yeah.
And I love the narration in this point because when you look at these panels and you see that Clark is still wearing an overcoat because it's wet out and we don't know how his Kryptonian or Earth spandex might be, and he might get cold. I love how she mentions that even still the symbol shines through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like I say, it's to prove that the inspiration of hope is there. And that's the one key thing that's happening there. So after he gets a quick kiss goodbye, he's back to action, going back to the scene, flying over. And you see the citizens of Smallville are seeing this. And this is now giving them hope, which they need desperately at this moment.
And he doesn't just become Metropolis's hero here. He becomes the world's hero.
Yeah. So as he starts going through, putting everything down to stop the flood, saving the Kents who are caught up as they're trying to escape. Because after they didn't listen to the warning to evacuate, they're caught up in it. And like I say, it's kind of a very harsh lesson they have to learn. But Jonathan Kent's thrown from the truck. Oh. So he has to go get saved. What, Tom?
Okay. Now, after seeing this particular panel, I had that pearl clutch.
Yeah.
So,
he's clutching the pearls.
Yeah. And rightfully so, because obviously it's a very impactful scene that's going on.
He's making diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is obviously where Clark has to go make the save on him. And really, it kind of solidifies that Superman's back. Like there's that sense of like there's calm in the world because he catches his hand there and his dad's like, you can put me down at any point now and make that happen. So he does wind up saving it, especially Dog, not Crypto. So I didn't feature on the screen, didn't want to mislead anybody. But we do see that the town is back and kind of giving their thanks. And really, this is the moment where it solidifies that Superman is back. Like I say, this goodbye shot from Lana as Superman flies away and really kind of just drops that point about, who he is and where he is now.
I just want to say this kind of hits close to home because where they live, it's snowing and then there's enough rain to cause a flood. Like this is definitely the southern tier of New York.
Yeah, this is
is not Smallville, folks. But no, it's very impactful. It's very, it's nice and it's sweet. And, Superman is going off free as a bird. I love the shot there because you see him going off, he's going and everybody's like, okay, we got our hero back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No more sulking, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So as he goes flying back to Metropolis, we do see obviously a little glimmer of hope as the skies light up the first time he's been back. And really with a sense of like, he might have lost, but he kind of found his own purpose. And winds up stealing the headlines from Lois Lane a little bit. So kind of driving that wedge a little more home. And, she's kind of flipping out about why did he, scoop this? And he just kind of brushes it off. He's, just happened to be the right place, right time, huh?
Mm-hmm. And again, that is Chris Reeve Superman 1 right there.
Of course.
Yeah. Of course. And then obviously runs into the boys still playing on the rooftops there. And this is where Lex is watching this because he now sees that Superman is making a friend with the boy. And he's like, oh, my name's Trevor. And Superman Enzo goes, well, yeah, they call me Superman. And literally, that is how it wraps up, folks. So an amazing journey into Superman's past. Nevertheless, now we always cut it right down the middle. We spoke a lot of great things about this. So I'll start with Rich. What was something you didn't like about the series? Super chat, you could definitely throw your picks in too if you read this.
Well, I already said it did take me out a little bit when Superman is like Clark Kent, is like the size of Superman. It's like it's got a little hard. It's like a little on the nose that nobody's figuring this out when he's especially that scene where he's standing behind Lois, and it's just like he's almost in the Superman pose. He doesn't have his hands on his hips, but he might as well have because it's like but how do you not know that he's Superman? But I know it's a little nitpicky, but it does take you out of the story for a minute because you're just like, you almost want to be like, he's there. It's him. Mm-hmm. It's him right there. Outside of that, there's a couple of parts of the story that, as good as it is, there's parts that are like bogged down. They get in a little bit of like the very. And I'm not saying it has to be action packed the whole time, but there's a couple scenes and a couple pages where you're just like, we could have done without it. I know that some of it was teasing. Obviously, like the stuff Pete was kind of teasing a little bit. And obviously, like some of the side characters, the little boy, I do like how he fits in and stuff. But there's like there's a lot more questions, like, i.e., why is he playing on a little like roof, not even a roof deck, like an outside of a window deck with a bicycle, however many stories in the sky. Like, this is weird to me. Like, I don't know where these parents are and why they're not the villains of this
He's a
story.
latchkey kid.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not the villains of this story, but they should be. But anyways, there's a lot more good than bad. I will just throw that out there. But there is a couple things that's like, it's a little slow at times. And on top of that, they really did on the nose. Like, they didn't at all like shy away that Clark Kent is Superman. And then the rest of the people in the story have to look like, how did you know?
Yeah.
Like, just how don't you know?
Tom?
My big thing was his design, quite frankly. I mean, again, I know we're trying to go for this Norman Rockwell idea, very classic feel, a classic vibe, but this big barrel-chested crimson chin, neck shoulder thing, it kind of took me out of it. I think it made him larger than life more than he needed to be Superman. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. I mean, I didn't have any issue with it, but I understand. I could understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
He's got Dark Knight chin. Like,
Well,
really,
Martha.
not the whole thing. Sometimes he does very much look like Christopher Reeves. We pointed that out. But then there's like scenes, like even on that last shot of him, he has literally Dark Knight, like comic book Dark Knight chin, like well pronounced. It's kind of weird. I agree.
Derek has a message for you, Tom. You don't like Superman looking like a big thumb.
He's not wrong. He does look like a big thumb. Now I can't unsee it, Derek. Now I can't unsee it. I was going with Dark Knight chin, but now he is a thumb.
But this Superman's still better looking than Guy Gardner.
Oh,
See, now he's just going for smoke.
now he's just trying to drop mics on.
Yep. Now, like, listen, I could send Derek an invite very quickly. We can have that conversation there. But getting back to the story, I mean, I think the only thing I didn't like is it seemed the kid on the roof I thought was a little much. I understand why they did it, but I think it just kind of didn't really make sense about him on the rooftops as much as he was. And it was also Toxin. I think it was just too convenient that she's a Psycho Superman fan.
Because
reasons. Yeah.
Plot armor.
Yeah. Like, I think that was the only thing that really took me out a little bit, because it's just like, it's so convenient. And then, to see her die the way she did, it doesn't really have an impact on Superman because he doesn't know. So, like, if that was the case, I think had he known, that would have been a little more impactful to maybe cause that downward spiral. Like, I let down such a big fan if he knew the degree of it.
Now that you mentioned that, you have to look at his least shortest arc of a villain ever. Like, she's obsessed with Superman. She gets basically held hostage, Manchurian candidated, Clockwork Orange, whatever you want to call it. And now all of a sudden, like, she's not really fighting Superman. Like, she's technically helping Superman's helping her.
Well, it's a decoy setup by
right,
Lex.
But it's a weird arc. Like, you could have gotten a lot more out of that character.
No, I agree. I agree. Like I said, that was the one thing I did not like. I understand what they were going for. I just don't think they hit the landing with it.
And it's a very 90s costume.
Oh, completely. Well, we have to remember, take in context when this book was done. So yeah, like, that's something you got to remember.
The weird part about it, comparing stories, because once again, for the same reason we did them a couple weeks ago when we did Men of Tomorrow, it literally, Ulysses was a well thought out arc to kind of like go against Superman. And Toxin could have done something similar if they would have let it simmer. Like, maybe not let her die, maybe let her get some power somehow. But like, to do it that quickly kind of almost felt like a waste of a character that could have actually been very intriguing.
What bugs me about her is the fact that she was also the creator of the virus, and she was also the cure. Like, and she was the own patient zero. When did Lex push her to do this that would force Superman? Like, was like, there could have been panels right there going, hey, you need to do this. Take out what you didn't like, put those in.
Well, yeah. Well, here, perfect example. I'm rewriting history. What if there's a scene where she sees Superman pining for Lana or something? And then that, of course, because she's obsessed with Superman, that sends her down the hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Yeah. And that would have been like at least understandable why she went to the length she went to. Not just because, like, think about it. All he did was he's got her eyes open, Clockwork Orange style, staring at the man that she's in love with. Like, I don't know how that makes her like want to do something bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but if Superman scorns her,
well, yeah, like, I think for what they just want to use is just somebody a plug and play, the one and done, which, I mean, it makes sense, but I think to do it in a story like this, it would have made more sense to have it be like a foreshadowing, like if we saw her earlier in the story. I think, like I say, that is the only thing I really have to say negative about it. because for being the catalyst for him to leave Metropolis for as long as he did, it seemed like it was a bit drastic. But then again, we have to remember the mind frame he's in.
Could she have been the first person he wasn't able to save? And that could have been it.
Well, I think that's where they were going for.
But they don't really expound.
But they don't say, but they don't say
Yeah.
it. So that's the thing we have to remember.
Or maybe he has a shrine to her in his house. Ooh.
Well, their Fortress of Solitude we don't know about.
We're getting crazy here.
Yeah.
Getting crazy.
But before we get too crazy, we gave you the good and the bad chat, super chat. If you've read this story out of 10, what is your grade for Superman for All Seasons? I will start with Tom for this. Tom, what is your grade?
Ooh, Tom, you're on the hot seat.
That's fine. I'm going to give it a 9.25.
Ooh, 9.25.
We round up. So 9.3?
9.3.
9.3 rounding up.
9.3. And again, it's because of those panels that I think should have been in that totally, bogged it down, that they should have been there. How did Lana get back? How did Toxin get created? There's a lot of hows that I think would have enriched the story, not taking away from it where it's at, but there's a few things, and I guess maybe that's just us as educated comic book readers, that should have been in there.
Yeah.
And the Crimson Chin looking thing.
All right. Rich?
You know what? I'm going to go with a flat 9 out of 10. I still enjoy this story very much. There is some faults in it. Not that there's such thing as a real perfect story, right? But there was definitely some faults in it. The plot armor gets to be a little bit much at sometimes. There is a little bit of bogging down at times, but the story overall conquers.
Mhm.
That's why it still deserves a 9, because the story overall kicks a lot of butt. Like trying to keep PG here, and I think that really at the end of the day, I can see, which we'll draw in probably in a second in our closing, I can see why this would be an inspiration for a movie.
Yeah. Definitely got to throw Derek's picking. He says 9.5 out of 10. And you know what, Derek? I'm hard-pressed not to agree with you.
Ooh, Ken's going 9.5.
I'm going 9.5 on this one. The one thing that this book really illustrated is how Superman got from point A to point B and how he emerged as a symbol of hope through tragedy. And I thought for Jeff Loeb's script, I thought he nailed the emotional moments when they needed to be nailed. The first issue with Jonathan Kent really drove that point home about the transition from boy to go be a man. Then getting to Metropolis and seeing him find his way there, and still he's a fish out of water, but still enough that he's coming more comfortable in his role. But then when that third issue hits, and that's why I said that was my favorite one there, he's really tested and you see him falter. And to see that in Superman is very, very telling, even at that first stage, because you just see how the late Tim Sale drew his face and drew the sadness when he lost Toxin, when he was failing. And to carry that weight on his shoulders was really a loud statement to then have that rebound, because he goes back home to find himself. So he has to go home to accept what he's become and really kind of think big picture. And that is what sets him off to become DC's greatest hero.
Now, okay, Ken, you said yours was number 3. Rich, which one was yours?
Favorite issue?
Mm-hmm.
Issue. My favorite issue out of all of them actually was number 3 as well, because I like the Luthor story.
I like the Luthor story, but for me, it's number 4. It's the Homecoming that got me.
I mean, there's no wrong answer for that one.
No, there's not.
I mean, this series is damn near perfect. And it's one that when we go to the movies this week, we're going to see a lot of influence there. If you're looking for even more stories about this, I did an article for nerdinitiative.com talking about some of the stories that are influencing. Trust me, the ones that James Gunn put on his threads there, if that is anything we're going to see in the movie, we're in for a real treat. And especially don't miss the videos that are up right now on Nerd Initiative YouTube. Derek and Mickey did a phenomenal job with everything you need to know about Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific. I know Metamorpho's coming. And we got more videos dropping this week, along with articles on the website too. So you definitely want to make sure you're locked in and subscribe to everywhere that is the home of pop culture positivity.
I would say before going into closing, let's tie it all in. Because we're comics. This is a movie, but it still ties in. So let's tie it in. What is everybody's final thoughts before? And I'm not saying spoil what you think is going to happen in the movie. I'm just asking, where are you right now? Excitement levels, maybe where you're pulling back, whatever, with the new Superman movie. I'll kick it off. I was very critical because I guess I was kind of like in the first couple trailers, I was like, seems like they're just throwing stuff at the wall. We know how this ends. It's never good. You know what I mean? However, the last couple trailers got me good. It got me good. And then reading this book really kind of tied it in, because I think two things that excited me the most was seeing Lois fire at Superman. And in this book, I think that's the inspiration. You have a badass Lois Lane who's willing to push back on Superman no matter what. And I think that's pretty cool. And the other thing you kind of see in this book is a more methodical Lex Luthor. The scene that got me in the last trailer was actually just his monologue telling Clark that he's going after everybody. I'm going after your friends. I'm going after the people who unfortunately raised you. I'm going after the people that you love. I'm going after them all. I'm going to eliminate them all because I'm going to get you. And it just shows that, like you saw that scene that we all went about in this this comic, with him standing in that silhouette with the lightning. That evilness came out of Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor, and I went, okay, now I'm intrigued. Now it feels like we're going somewhere. And so those were what excited me. So I was firstly cautiously optimistic. And now I'm kind of excited to check out Superman this weekend. Tom?
I'm still on the cautiously optimistic. So I'm at about a 65 out of 100. I mean, I'm going to go see it. It's a superhero movie. You guys know me. I'm going to see it no matter what. But I think that the trailers were great in the fact that we don't know what the hell is happening. That's what gets
good.
me.
That's good.
So that's what's really intriguing me and pushing me to go to the movies. I have been fortunate enough to go see some other interviews online of the new actor who's playing Superman. And this dude is an actor.
David Cornsweet?
Yes, thank you. He is an actor. He's Juilliard trained. He has done his homework about this. As a matter of fact, if you look at during the casting, he actually wrote a letter to whom it may concern, and obviously got back to Gunn. And that is why he's the new Superman. I'm like, okay, he understands the character before even putting on the suit.
He is very Christopher Reeves-esque.
I am super excited for this.
Super.
Well, for a couple reasons. One, knowing that James Gunn, who's had experience doing a superhero film, and he got the most out of a franchise that, let's be honest, should never have made it past the first film, because the Guardians of the Galaxy were not household names. His vision of that space team transcended into pop culture, and he tapped into a nerve with an audience that really would not gravitate for it normally. So to see that he is now helming all of DC Studios, and especially knowing what he has with the franchise player coming out of the gate, first and foremost, he knows the pressure's there, but he did the smart thing of going to the comics. And there is so many influences that he has said he's borrowed from. Most importantly, All-Star Superman. And if you haven't read that, which we're going to do here on a show one of these days, it'll be a two-parter because it's 12 issues. We want to do it fair justice. Knowing that is a heavily influenced factor on this film really puts me at ease as a comic book fan, because I don't consider myself a pop culture fan, because there is a very big difference between that when you go to the movies. But I think that he did enough with the comic book fans by having Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Metamorpho in a movie. And then let alone we have the symbol of hope to resonate no matter what. And I think for the vibes that we're getting and the time period we're in right now, this is the perfect moment to be reminded that hope will conquer all.
Yes.
So for that reason alone,
that's why he's the boss.
Well, that's why I'm the EIC. So that reason alone, I am very excited for this. In fact, I will be dropping the review of Superman on Thursday night after I watch it on nerdinitiative.com. So you have the unofficial spoilers. You'll have everything to deep dive about.
I mean, if you really want to prove his boss, the franchise he should have quoted was the super universe. It got derailed because of Brightburn's non-success, unfortunately.
I try not to think of Brightburn.
I love Brightburn.
I know you do.
I know you do.
But it's a whole new era with DC Comics. And you know what? If you haven't been reading the comics lately, you should be jumping in. And obviously, the Superman line right now is firing on all cylinders. A lot of great things coming out. Absolute Superman's dropping tomorrow, Action Comics, and Superman Treasury, Hero for All, is going to be actually leading off our lineup at nerdinitiative.com.
You don't think that was intentional, do you? Not for us. I'm talking about for DC.
Yeah.
They Superman books drop at the same time.
They loaded up the deck this week, but it is a loaded week. And like we always say here at Nerd Initiative, nobody does it quite like Nerd Initiative. Over 30 reviews dropping on the website and YouTube channel, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Great lineup this week. So that being said, Rich, you want to let everybody know where to find you this week?
Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking pro wrestling. It's going to be a big wrestling week, so I'm tired because there's like a pay-per-view, a PLE, a Saturday Night's Main Event, and then another PLE. So we've got a lot coming out. So if you're a wrestling fan, Wrestling Night Live will be live 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. And then there will be, I had to squeeze in between all the Superman coverage. I had to squeeze in a pre-show extravaganza for not only All In, AEW's All In, but also Evolution, the all women's pay-per-view for WWE. So those will be the two. The other ones we will be discussing on Wrestling Night Live, amongst other topics that we'll be talking about. So join myself and Sammy as we discuss all things pro grappling on Thursday.
Tom?
Well, you'll catch me obviously after tonight. You're just going to see me online with all my reviews coming out. Then on Monday, we've got Play for Keeps. We've got the TV reviews. I think that next Monday might be the Red Band one that we've talked about before, So yeah, that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. A lot of great content coming here to Nerd Initiative YouTube and the website. So you definitely want to make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, and obviously letting the GEO know that you want to see more content like Turn a Page, like Wrestling Night Live, like Play for Keeps on the Nerd Initiative YouTube channel, because nobody has a year lined up like the home of pop culture positivity. There's so much stuff going on I am not allowed to talk about right now, but let's just say this. July is going to be a month that you don't want to miss. And then as we're heading to New York Comic Con, get ready. That's all I'm going to say about that. So on behalf of Rich, Tom, and myself, thank you for checking out another edition of Turn a Page. And we'll end it like we always do. When you're at the comic shop and you have a great issue in your hand, such as Superman for All Seasons, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next time.
I'm out.
This program is powered by Fantasyverse, where manga, comics, and more collide. Check their website out, because it's not a dream. It's Fantasyverse. The content you've just watched is part of the Nerd Initiative Network. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out nerdinitiative.com, the home of pop culture positivity. This program is powered by Fantasyverse, where manga, comics, and more collide. Check their website out, because it's not a dream. It's Fantasyverse. The content you've just watched is part of the Nerd Initiative Network. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out nerdinitiative.com, the home of pop culture positivity.